Welcome back, everyone, to our retrospective on Nico's story in Liberty City. Our last episode took us through the trials and tribulations of Broker until it became too hot for us, literally too hot for us, as our safe house was burned to the ground by the Russian mob. We then had to flee to Bohan, to this lovely apartment that Mallory arranged for us with some of her friends because she is from Bohan. So, beggars can't be choosers. We are here. This is definitely a step up from the tiny little flea bag that we were living in Broker. So, at this point, we are going to continue on. As I said, the last thing that happened after many running around and getting involved with the Russian mob is that Dmitri has betrayed us and betrayed his boss and hooked up with Mr. Bulgarin, who we were fleeing, who caused us to run away from Europe. So we are therefore continuing on with our story. We are going to go and visit the community center. And the last time we talked to Mallory, she said to come and see her there, that she knew people who could probably help us. So that's what we're going to do now. And we will follow up with the retrospective here in just a moment. We meet Mallory at the community center, and she introduces us to Manny Escuela, a local who claims to be a reformed gang member who now wishes to give back to the community. And all this giving back, however, seems to take place in front of the video camera his cameraman Jay Hamilton always has trained on him. After Nico throws the camera away because Jay won't stop pointing it at him, Manny asks Nico if he will help him clean up the streets of a group of drug dealers. We get in a car and find one of the dealers and tail him to a warehouse. Manny asks Nico to go inside while he drives off to find his cameraman. Manny and Jay show up as Nico finishes wiping out the dealers. Nico warns them not to point the camera at him again, and Manny and Jay go into the building to document another senseless gangland drug massacre as Nico wanders off. Nico gets a call from Brucey later expressing concern over Roman's gambling and asking him to try and help reel him in. Nico later meets up with Brucey and Roman at Brucey's apartment. There, Brucey states that Tom Rivas, the cousin of Lyle Rivas, who Brucey had Nico track down and kill earlier using the police computer, is refusing to pay his debt and is threatening Brucey. They haven't been able to track him down, but they know he frequents gay dating sites and convinces Nico to make a profile. Which requires us to return to the twat internet cafe and see the lovely Alejandra again. You can tell she feels the same way by the way she's looking at my ass. Back at the community center, we find Manny being congratulated by Officer McCreary for the important work he is doing cleaning up the area. After McCreary leaves, Manny asks us to go take out a gang operating out of a garage in Bohan, who have been, in his words, violating the code of the streets, man. He is staying behind to continue taping his testimony, as he also claims to be one of the inventors of rap. Nico makes very short work of it. However, it took me a while. Damn those drive-by mechanics. Mallory asks us to join her at Elisabetta Torres' house, who may have some work for us. Elisabetta says her job will be harder than Manny's, and they have a good laugh when Nico says nothing can be tougher than listening to him talk. She set up for Patrick McCreary. McCreary, that name is familiar. And is sure about the folks he's going to meet. We agree to provide protection. A good choice as the deal goes as bad as one of Jacob's. Using a sniper rifle, Nico takes out the attackers. I will very soon learn the sniper rifle is one of my best friends. Mallory will call later and tell us to be careful around Elisabetta as she is a drug dealer. Jacob will also call us and tell us that she's a good business person, but don't get on her bad side. We return to the internet cafe. Anyway, we check our email and find that Tom Rivas has agreed to go out on a date with us. We meet Tom, who tells us he only dates rich guys. As an example, he says he used to date a guy named Gay Tony who owns a couple of clubs in town, and doesn't anymore as Tony only pretends to be rich but is actually broke. Once again, I am so looking forward to playing the Ballad of Gay Tony. God knows he's so much fun in the online version. When we tell Tom we've come to collect on his debt, the date ends in a predictable fashion. Understandably, we don't get a thumbs up later after this debt. Having had Gay Tony mentioned to us, back at Elisabetta's party, we meet Johnny Klebitz, the vice president of the Lost Motorcycle Club. He has a heroin deal set up that Elisabetta is nervous about and asks us to go along to help oversee it. She also introduces us to Playboy X, a local wheeler and dealer who is also coming along to watch over the deal. She is very nervous about this one and wants as many guns around as possible. Something I had not known until I was researching for this episode was that Carmen Ortiz, one of the women we can date in the side missions later, was at this party and dancing with Elisabetta here. It just fits right in with Carmen's free spirit personality that we'll get to know once we start dating her. Back at the mission in hand, the contact we meet is acting very weird and asking questions about, do you have the drugs here? Are they on you? Johnny says we're leaving, and the deal is revealed to be a police setup. Surprise, surprise. We split up. Nico and Playboy have to fight their way out and go up to the roof where they go down the fire escape. We take him home on our first trip to Algonquin, as the bridges on this side of the island have now been opened. On the way, Playboy mentions how the street is a tough place to operate in and says how his friend Dwayne Forge is in prison for dealing crack as an example. He then texts that we are good to have around and to come and see him later for work. On the way home, Roman calls and says the insurance has come through on the burned out cab depot and that he has invested it in buying another taxi company. A new radio station is also on our dial now, Integrity 2.0, hosted by the mighty Laszlo as he walks the streets of Liberty interviewing people. We all know Laszlo, of course. He was the main interviewer on Chatterbox in GTA 3. He was the main DJ on V-Rock in Vice City. He was the host of the Entertaining America talk show in San Andreas. And of course, in GTA 5 and GTA Online, he's an NPC and he has a reality TV show called Fame or Shame. In the real world, Laszlo Jones left Rockstar in 2020, so we may not see Laszlo return to the airwaves in GTA 6. Along with Dan Houser and Leslie Benzies leaving and also no longer being at Rockstar, there's a good deal of concern about the upcoming game may come out. You know, all you have to do is look at Saints Row and see how they lost the plot in their reboot. Enough editorializing. Nico returns to Brucey's garage to find him working on a Banshee in order to enter a street race. When it won't crank, he and Nico go to borrow a car from Brucey's friend Stevie to race in. After a number of tries, I finally managed to win the race and make Brucey happy. This is why I generally don't participate in the racing parts of these stories. Brucey is happy enough that he gives us the Comet to keep. We also find out in the post-race conversation that Brucey's been having us kill people because of his steroid rages. We tell him we can't work for him anymore, but on the, I suppose, bright side, we keep him for a friend and can now go on bro dates with him. When we get his friendship level high enough, we can call him and take helicopter rides to parts of the town. No, we're not through with Manny yet. He is watching the video that's been taped so far and complaining to Jay that he doesn't look street and he's making him look effeminate. He also tells Nico that some former friends are making fun of him for it and calling him a fake, and he wants Nico to take them out. We have to follow the L train across town from a car underneath the tracks. Then we hunt down and kill all the gang members when they get off at the station. After this, Manny tells us that he will thank Nico in all of his acceptance speeches. Checking in with Playboy, he is telling us how he is a big success and a power in the city when his old partner and mentor Dwayne comes in. This is the guy that Playboy had mentioned as being in prison on a crack charge, and to Playboy's huge surprise, he's been let out. Dwayne tells him that he might have known he was getting out if he ever called or visited. Playboy tells us to come on a job with him and ironically tells Dwayne to make himself at home. Ironic because this apartment was his before he went to jail. Before we go, Dwayne tells us privately how money changes people and how quick they are to forget. Playboy tells us on the trip over that he wants us to get tight with a real estate developer named Yusef Amir, but Amir is ignoring all his calls. He says that Amir is having problems with a mafia-controlled union who is on strike, and figures he can score points with him by ending the strike. He gives Nico a sniper rifle out of a car nearby and goes to the roof to take out the nearby watchman. Moving down to the ground, we then have to fight our way through lots of guards until Nico can take out all 4 Union boxes, along with the extra goons who arrive by helicopter. Playboy says that Amir will be sure to take his calls now. Next, Playboy is upset with a member of his drug dealing gang who says he's become disrespectful and thinks that he's snitching on him as well. He tells us he wants Nico to go and take him out of the area he's been dealing. Playboy can't adequately describe the guy, so we have to take a picture with our phone to text to him. Once he's ID'd him as the canary-looking mother, our handy-dandy sniper ends the mission. Later, on our next date with Michelle, she keeps asking us whether we or Roman know where we can get drugs for a friend of hers. Nico pleads ignorance. After our last mission following the train from Manny, we get a text from an unknown caller to meet at the pier. We find Officer Francis McCreary there, who we had last seen thanking Manny for his work cleaning up the streets. He tells Nico he's being blackmailed by someone who has photos of a past indiscretion, and he wants Nico to kill him and bring McCreary the evidence. When Nico asks why it's our problem, McCreary blackmails him by saying he knows his past, that he killed Faustin, and that the Russian mob are looking out for him. He says that if Nico looks out for him, then he won't have to look out for Nico. Nico goes to the park and finds the blackmailer by calling his phone and see who answers. He guns him down, grabs the thumb drive, and returns it to Francis. He says he feels like a new man and all his past is absolved. Playboy calls Nico and asks if he can help Dwayne with some problems he's having. At Dwayne's apartment, we find out that while he was in jail, Dwayne was sending money to his old friend Charisse to pay the rent and all, but he's since found out that she was giving money to Javon, a member of Dwayne's gang who snitched him out. He also found out that Charisse has been Javon's girlfriend for some time now. He asks Nico to go get his money back. Nico says, "Dwayne, you remind me a lot of myself," and agrees to go and help him out. We track them down to the arcade in Chinatown and tell them Dwayne wants his money back. Javon takes a shot at us and drives off. Nico is presented with another choice when Charisse begs him not to kill her. We end up letting her go because we figure Dwayne doesn't need her blood on his hands as well. Chasing down Dwayne, Javon, Nico kills him and takes Dwayne's money back to him. Dwayne ends up saying he's happy we didn't kill Charisse because she's just an idiot after all. Returning to McCreary's office, Nico is told there's a lawyer in town, Tom Goldberg, who the previous blackmailer was going to give the pictures to. Unfortunately, he already has enough to bring Francis down for corruption. He's highly protected, so the only way to get to him is to get to his office. He has Nico put a resume online and apply for jobs, since he says that since Goldberg belongs to this goody two-shoes firm and Nico's an immigrant, he's guaranteed to want to interview him. When they call him for an interview, Nico is able to get into Goldberg's office and then threaten him into giving over the files on McCreary before killing him. Nico then fights his way out of the office building and past the police before losing his wanting rating and returning the files to relieved Francis, who says how relieved he is and how he feels like he's lost all his sins again. Nico goes to see Dwayne and finds that he is still seriously depressed over how things have changed since he went away. He tells Nico he used to own a classy strip club called the Triangle Club before being jailed, but once he was convicted, some gangsters came in and took it over. Nico tells him he'll go clear out the squatters for him. He hunts down all three of the managers in the club and kills them and the security in the club as well. Playboy, however, is not happy with the events. He had invested in the club after the Trunchez brothers had moved in and taken over. And when we tell him we were just helping out Dwayne, he said, "Don't help Dwayne if it doesn't help me." Elizabeth calls us, telling we'd better come over and help him with little Jacob. We get there to find them in a deadly serious argument. She's been ripped off in a deal by a group Jacob hooked her up to, and she suspects that he set her up. Nico goes to the abandoned school where the deal is going down between the Spanish lords and the Angels of Death. He has to fight his way through both gangs to the back room and collect the coke. Just in time for Noose to arrive. He then has to fight his way back out through all the Noose agents and the police. Jacob then calls and says he thinks he's found who sold them out and to meet him at a warehouse. We arrive and talk to Jacob briefly, and then Michelle shows up. It turns out she's been a government agent assigned to get to know Nico and any of his possible criminal connections. She takes the coke, and when Jacob asks why she's letting him go, she says the agency she works for has a need for someone like Nico and will be in touch. Needless to say, we can't go on dates with her anymore. Mallory calls apologizing that she didn't know who Michelle was, and then later Playboy calls saying that Amir is going to shut down the construction site and make a memorial to workers hurt in accidents. He says that isn't his main problem right now, and he needs Nico to come over to his apartment. Nico goes to see how Elizabeth is doing and finds her coked up and desperate as it seems everything is falling apart around her. Manny and Jay pick that bad time to come busting into the apartment to record Manny insulting her and telling her that she needs to quit selling drugs in the neighborhood. Manny has picked the wrong time and place to finally do something himself, and both he and Jay get shot in the head for it. Nico then loads them into the trunk of a car and takes them to a shady doctor Elizabeth tells us about who specializes in making bodies disappear. He says that their organs will bring a good price on the market, and therefore Manny will finally be helping the people on the streets. On the way back to the safe house, Mallory calls and worriedly tells Nico that Roman went out the previous night and hasn't come back at all, and that isn't like him. Michelle then calls and tells us that we need to come to the United Liberty Paper Building downtown to meet her and someone else. Finally, Packy McCreary, the fella that Elizabeth had us go to protection with the sniper gun, he calls and tells us he was impressed with how we oversaw the drug deal with him and kept him alive, and that if we need more work to come and see him, we really need to start screening our phone calls. When we head back to see the policeman named McCreary, he tells us there's a drug dealer and a pimp who needs to be taken out because he's just trying to make the city 1% better at a time. He says it would take too long to get evidence on him, and any evidence that he got might be incriminating for otherwise good men. Wonder who that person could be. We agree to take him out, but say that this will be the last thing we do for Officer McCreary. Climbing a nearby crane, our trusty sniper does the trick. In researching this, I've seen that if we go in on foot and we fight our way to him, we get another choice of whether to kill him or not. And if we spare him, he shows up later as another random character. Mallory calls and informs us that the shit has hit the fan and that Elizabeth has been arrested. Mallory thinks that on top of all the dealing, she might also have killed Manny. Nico gets a second call from her a little while later saying that Roman owes some Russians a lot of money and that he has been kidnapped by some bikers and being held at an abandoned factory. Nico goes to the factory and a gunfight across multiple floors ensues until we reach the office Roman is being held in. There we take out the kidnapper, who apparently hasn't heard what we do to folks who fuck with our family. Driving home, Roman tells us that the man there knew Dimitri and was trying to force Roman into selling Nico out. Nico tells Roman that he knows he would never do that. Arriving back at the safe house, Nico and Roman have a big fight, and Nico tells him he has to stop the gambling before he gets himself or someone he cares for killed. Not yet taking our advice, Roman calls us to tell us that Bohan is too hot and Dmitri is getting too close to finding us. He's won a huge payoff in a card game and got a new luxury apartment in Algonquin for us. As the saying goes, even a broken clock is right twice a day. A little while later, we get a phone call from Dmitri, who tells us he was so disappointed not to see us at the factory the other day, and that he wishes he had arrived a little bit sooner and he could have had a bit of fun with Roman. Nico meets another random encounter, Jeff Harlingford. He's paranoid and he is absolutely convinced his wife is having an affair. He gives us money to track her down and to get a picture of us and the fellow she's with. We do, and we send Jeff the picture, but we also tell him we haven't seen anything happen between them that looks like anything other than just friends. We get a message to see Francis McCreary again. He is angry at us and says that Clarence, the pimp we killed, has a friend who's going to the feds with evidence against McCreary. Francis threatens to turn on us if we don't help. But after we say we don't care and we're indifferent, he finally convinces him to offer us money. Nico goes to the building across the street from the gang member's safe house, lures him in front of the window with a phone call, and takes him out. Going back to see Playboy, he's telling us that Dwayne doesn't understand how the world works now and has become a liability. He tells us he looks at Playboy like he wants him dead and that he thinks Nico and Playboy are too tight, and he wants Nico taken out too. He then asks us to kill Dwayne for him. Later, we get a call from Dwayne saying he thinks Playboy wants him dead and he wants us to kill Playboy first. He says he can't do it because the two of them were friends back in the day and he could never forget something like that if he killed him. Nico says he'd have to think about it. Driving around, Nico comes across another random character, but this one is familiar. The Real Bad Man. He tells Nico he has more troubles. Now the rival gangs are out of the way, the Russians are moving into his turf and taking over. With Nico's sentiments regarding the Russians, we agree to help him out. He leads us to where a deal is going down in an alleyway, and after a quick but brutal shootout, this particular group of Russians are no longer an issue. Having thought about it, we reach our decision. Playboy is very surprised when we show up at his apartment so soon and says, "How did we get it done so quick?" Nico tells him no, he didn't kill Dwayne so quick. He's decided it's not going to be Dwayne. Playboy takes off and we have to take out his bodyguards before we can chase him down the street. We chase him down an alleyway and after his gun jams, we kill him. Calling Dwayne, we tell him Playboy is dead and that he offered us a lot of money to kill Dwayne. Dwayne's sad about it and says Playboy was a good kid, but he was always too money hungry and he wished he could have done something to turn him in a different way. Dwayne says he got no money for us, but we can have the loft. When we tell him, you live in a shithole, man, you should take it. He says, nah, it would remind me of the kid too much. But he does hope we'll stay friends with him, and so therefore he becomes our fourth bro-date friend. If we can get his friendship high enough, then when we call him for backup, he'll sing a couple of gang members to come and help us out. Alright, so that finishes up Bohan and a large section of Algonquin. I'm hoping that in the next week I will be able to get part 3 done. I do go back to work next week, so that's going to be a bit of a interesting experience while we're on the chemo and stuff. We'll see how that goes. But part 3 will continue on through Algonquin. Hopefully we'll be able to finish up the story and get us caught back up to where we can start making new episodes. It'll get us through the Algonquin and then into the mob wars of Alderney once the bridges on that side of the island open up. So we will see you then.